What's going on, Sunbelt fans? Hello and welcome into the first ever episode of the Sunbelt Syndicate. I am your host, Dominic Crusetto. I'd like to start off by thanking Teksho for the awesome intro and outro music we will be using for this podcast. We're going to jump right into it. The first one of the Sunbelt teams we'll break down is App State. Let's go over their past 3 years. 13-1 in 2019, 9-3 in 2020. 10-4 in 2021. So if you look at that, you may think they continue to add a loss or two each season, and technically that is correct, but I think you need to look a little closer at the schedules and maybe some variables that happen to see why those results came to be. But anyway, let's hit some milestones over those past 3 seasons. Within that time frame, they had 2 P5 wins, 2 title game appearances for the Sun Belt, with 1 conference title. And they also came away with a 2-1 bowl record. This season, I think the offense thrives if they can get their receiving core to become a threat. They lost almost every starting wide receiver they had last year. In fact, they did lose every starting wide receiver they had last year. They had 1 or 2 guys really get some little experience. I don't know if it's going to be really worthwhile, but we'll see how these young guys, these young and experienced guys, can come in and respond and hopefully help chase Bryce out while he's trying to throw the ball to those guys downfield. The offense will struggle if Bryce forces those throws or the offensive coordinator just kind of forces the air raid, air attack type style offense. I don't foresee that happening, but let's just say the running game is struggling and they need to go to the air a little bit. If they do that too much, I could see it as a potential downfall, just depending on how these receivers respond to a lot more targets and more playing time than they've been seen in the past. Defensively, I think they can thrive if they can adequately replace DeMarco Jackson's production from last season. For those of you that don't know, DeMarco Jackson was taken in the NFL draft by the New Orleans Saints, and he was the Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year last year for good reason. Just was very noticeable all over the field throughout the game. I think the defense could struggle if really any of the starting linebackers go down for any kind of extended period of time. And I'm not saying the depth behind them is bad or not that good. I just think it's unknown. And because of that, I know that the App State team thinks of their linebacker core as their strength. And I think that is a strength. But if they lose 1 or 2 of those guys, especially at the same time frame, I think that could be a downfall. We'd have to see how that would play out. Special teams, they've ranked in the top 27 in 4 out of the last 6 seasons. I don't really see a drop-off coming there. I know that they lost their starting kicker, but I think they'll be able to replace him with another guy. I just don't think that they're going to fall off tremendously. I think if they do fall off, it might be in the return game. Losing Jalen Virgil was a pretty big hit because he came away with 2 touchdowns just last season and a few touchdowns overall after his time at App State. So we'll jump right into the season week by week real quick. Let's just jump right in here. September 3rd, they host North Carolina up on the mountain. Going into the summer, I thought this was more of a toss-up game. I think now with what's happened to some position players here recently from North Carolina, I think App State will have the edge. They'll certainly have the edge in the fans and the amount of noise they'll be making for them in the stands at home. So we're going to go with a W on that one. The next week, they travel down to Texas A&M. And let's be honest, Texas A&M is in the SEC. They're thought to be ranked in the top 10 in just about every poll, and some polls are in the top 5. I just think it's going to be too much, especially if they do come away with a victory against North Carolina. They're going to go down there in that Texas heat, play a good team, talented team. I'm going to put an L on that one. They follow that up by hosting Troy the very next week. Troy has moved over to the west side after being in the east for many years, and these two teams have played, some close games. However, last year, App State came away with a 45-7 victory. I don't see that changing too much. I do think it'll be a little bit closer of a game, but I don't think that Troy is going to win this one, so we're going to go with App State W there. Follow that with James Madison coming up the mountain the week after. They're coming in off of a bye, which is an important factor. They could be rested and rejuvenated, and App will have played every week with 2 pretty tough opponents to start the season out with. So we'll see how banged up they are at that point, but I don't know. I think James Madison could be a little banged up at that point too, and first full year of FBS football, I don't see them knocking off a favorite to win the East. So I'm going to go with the W over James Madison there. They host the Citadel for third straight week of hosting an opponent. They host the Citadel that next week. And FCS opponent Citadel, they've been down and out lately, even in the FCS. I don't see any competition there. W for App State. And then they return down to Texas. They seem to play Texas State almost every year, even though it's a cross-division game. App State has really dominated that rivalry. It's not really a rivalry, but they've dominated that matchup a lot. I don't see that changing this year, not with what Texas State has and the issues that they've dealt with winning games lately. I chalk that up as a W for App State. Then they'll have a little chunk off before hosting Georgia State up on the mountain for a Wednesday night game. And Georgia State will be coming off a bye week. And I think that there is going to favor App State. They've never lost to Georgia State. I don't expect them to lose to Georgia State at home. I do think Georgia State will be vastly improved, but I don't see them coming away with a victory over App at home on a weekday game. App has a lot of experience in weekday games. Georgia State does not. So I'm going to favor App State there. Then they host Robert Morris for homecoming the following week. Again, FCS opponent who hasn't been very good as of late. We're going to chalk that up as an easy W. Then they travel down to Coastal Carolina for a Thursday night matchup. These two teams have had some close games the last 2 seasons. I think Coastal's lost too much. I think they lost a lot more than people think. They lost a lot of NFL talent, and they still have some NFL talent, but I think it's a lot less. They've got some question marks and some durability issues possibly. I think App State comes away with the victory there. Then they travel up to Marshall, and this one's one of those ones that could probably go either way, especially at this point of the season. You don't know what you're going to be up against with injuries and how people are playing. But I don't know. I'm an App State fan, so I got to stay loyal here. I think they want some revenge for that previous game they had against Marshall up there in 2020 where they kind of shot themselves in the foot too many times and lost that one. So I think the revenge factor will play heavily in App State's favor, and I'm going to favor them in that one with a W. They host Old Dominion the week after that. I think ODU is going to have a rough awakening here in the Sun Belt. I know they came on late the year before, but I just don't see it. Not yet. Not for ODU at this point in time. I'm going to chalk that up as an App State W. And then they end the season at heated and hated rival Georgia Southern. And at this point, as much as you want to look at it on paper and say that this should be an easy App State victory, I don't know. I think they should win, and I do have it as a W. I'll go ahead and say that, but I don't know. This rivalry is shocking and surprising a lot. App State's beat them the past 2 years, but before that, it seemed like Georgia Southern had their number. So no matter what you think now, by the time this game is played, things will change and outcome could be different, but I'm going to go with an App State W. With that being said, App State regular season record of 11-1. Please stay tuned as we go team by team for the breakdown through the Sun Belt, and subscribe, follow along for more as we go. Thanks.